Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where us four Backlot boys review every single Best Picture winner, and at the end of this episode, by all accounts, we will have completed that task. This is the 95th episode of the Quest for the Bestest, and today we are doing the very first Best Picture winner ever, Wings from 1927, directed by William A. Wellman and Harry Abadi Arras. That's a great name. Thank you, IMDb, for that one.
What?
Yep. Well,
okay.
It may be the last episode of Quest, but as you might know, it's not actually the last one. This is the final of the central canon, but we have found some nooks and crannies to get some other videos out about the series. Just a couple more, but we really are here at the end of it all. I can't really, have very few words about that, and a lot of words about this movie, which we're going to get into after a little housekeeping. Last week, we talked about All the King's Men from 1949. It was a political movie that it wasn't last week, it was 2 weeks ago. It was a political movie that we were like, but it doesn't actually say anything about politics. And so thus, it got a 4.5, and it ended up at the 85th spot on our list. Not great, sorry.
Yeah, that's bad, actually.
That's pretty much down there at the bottom. Today, though, we might be able to get a better movie. Who knows? We'll see. We're gonna find out about what we think of this after a featured comment. Do we have one for this time?
Well, the interesting thing, Timo, is that much like All the King's Men, the selection of comments was fairly weak too.
Oh, we didn't have much to say about.
One person asking us to review RRR, which we already have done, and another person, I believe it was Dan, said that hadn't watched the movie. So I went back to Braveheart because we actually have a new fostered son in the mix here. This is Matthew Burns, who says the following. Hey, fellas. I discovered your channel recently. Hey, Matthew.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. I discovered your channel recently and have been enjoying your quest. Not to sound like the archetypal old uncle, but I appreciate hearing your commentary through the perspective of your generation. I'm 51 and remember when Braveheart came out. A few tidbits for what they are worth. So glad you didn't rank Braveheart in your top tier. You were correct in applauding its entertainment factors, but it's a typical costume epic Best Picture winner, which is rousing and technically thrilling, but does not stand up to deep scrutiny. Mason Wiley, in his witty reference book Inside Oscar 2, tagged his 1995 chapter this way, quote, "Suppose they gave Best Picture to a film no one cares about." Mel can be a fine director and a total douche simultaneously. Braveheart also has doses of homophobia and cruel plot shortcomings. Yeah. Then our good friend and new son Matthew goes on and on and on about some other points, but I'm going to truncate it right there because they largely pertain to what we should do after Quest for the Bestest, which I think is actually kind of already coming into focus. So Matthew, too late. Sorry, you should have joined. You should have put yourself up for adoption sooner.
It's not. We
really haven't settled on anything, but
we have not settled.
The options
in our hearts we know we have.
Yeah,
in our hearts we know we have.
I think so. It's a little intimidating though. We are scared of what road we are leaning towards. But in the interim of Quest, we will be taking probably a substantial break, maybe a month or somewhere thereabouts.
A year or two.
Yeah.
3 years.
We'll
maybe.
let you know. We will let you know how long.
Actually, let's do it for 95 years, so when we come back, we got another 95 to review.
Yeah, to go to. Okay,
Yes.
I like that. Well, those will all be in the spinner for options.
Sure.
But you will know how long Quest will be gone. You'll know how long Quest will be gone and when Quest will be back in some different iteration. Mm-hmm. You will know.
Yep. Yes. And we're not going anywhere. We love doing this too much to stop now. Love a good comment, bringing in some extra sources. Thank you for that one, Abram. And now it's time to talk about Wings. Put on our flying caps and load up the machine guns of commentary. Because what did you guys think of the film? Do we want to have a plot synopsis first? Or
plot synopsis is pretty easy for this movie because you think about a war movie, and this
is a war movie.
This is a war movie. We got two young strapping American lads, Jack Powell and David Armstrong, and they're kind of rivals. In their hometown, they don't quite get along. They're both in love with the same girl whose name is Sylvia, and Jack has a girl next door named Mary Preston. Mary Preston.
Mm-hmm. They all have
likes him.
Yes. Mary loves him.
He doesn't realize that. and they both like the same other girl. And so there's this weird lopsided love trapezoid, which is kind of the focus of this movie. But as they both sign up to be in the Air Force, they go off, they do their training, they become friends by beating each other up. And then they do World War One together, and World War One doesn't go too great. You know, there's a lot of death.
They do World War One, but World War One also does them.
It does them. It does them in.
They almost do each other.
That's a great. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the kiss at the end. But it's pretty simple. You know, love trapezoid and a war movie, and lots of aerial dogfighting photography in the year 1927. So, as the first Best Picture winner, I'll start. I won't give my full thoughts, but I'll just start.
Love
this was
Rhombus.
a great movie.
I wanted to say Love Rhombus.
The Love
instead of
Rhombus.
Trapezoid.
Now you have.
Thank you. Continue, Tucker. I wanted to slide that in.
Well, no, I was just saying I think it's a great movie. I will let you guys give your thoughts first, though.
Oh, okay.
Who dares follow that up? Who thinks they've got the flying skills?
Well, that's that.
My
it
biting
is-
criticism.
Yeah. I was also really, I'll say blown away by Wings, because we've delved back into this era before. We just got out of it with things like Cimarron.
It almost
and
never goes
Cavalcade.
well.
And
Broadway melody.
exactly. But then you get back to Wings, and you're like, there's a lot of like creativity going on here, directorially and cinematographically. I think the character stuff still leaves something to be desired, but I think there is a real like sense of care and craft behind this that the other ones didn't seem to have for some reason.
Yeah.
They did seem to be sort of, there's thematic value to those, as we've talked about with like Cimarron, but they haven't aged well by any stretch of the imagination. But Wings, it is this like timeless war story that we've seen told over and over again, especially in World War One, talking about All Quiet on the Western Front, the one that came out 3 years after this, or 100 and some years after this. Well, actually, not quite 100 years.
No.
This film is not quite 100, or it is
Not quite 100 years.
96
But
years
we've
old.
seen, we've seen this kind of story told before, but I think it really is the directorial hand behind Wings that really made it sing for me.
Yeah.
Abram, what did you think?
Yeah, I think I have a couple conflicting thoughts about Wings, I suppose. Tanner, to your point, it's interesting, as you're saying, really to not draw this into comparison with the All Quiet on the Western Front film from the 30s, with the one that came out just last year, because it's kind of interesting to look at the practical spectacle of Wings and realize that they kind of got it right.
Yeah.
So long ago. And obviously...
that's why my first thought. I came out of the movie and I'm like, I'm sorry, Edward Berger, but this happened like 90 years before and it hasn't changed that much.
Yeah, I just think that's a testament to how sort of awe-inspiring a lot of the technical filmmaking here is, and to me that's obviously the strength of Wings.
Yeah.
And so through that lens, I was quite entertained for significant portions of the film, but I also find the actual character work and actual plot of the film to be fairly rote.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that you really, really feel the runtime of this film in a way that you often don't. Now, partially that's just sort of reacclimating your mind to the mode of silent filmmaking and the pace and
This is
tempo of
one
that kind of story.
2 silent films we get to review for this episode.
The only fully silent film is what Wikipedia says.
So that's certainly a consideration, but I do think nonetheless that you could probably get to where Wings is going in a lot less than 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to do that, I think more of the focus would have been on where Wings is really at its strongest, which is orchestrating these incredible set pieces. So I really enjoyed Wings, and I think it is a especially timeless film, but I also think that it is quite boring in certain avenues.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah. I think my analysis of Wings is that it is spectacular. It is a spectacle-filled film that executes very well on its awe-inspiring moments with dogfights and the flame effects and including stuff on the ground with there's an aerial shot of a bajillion guys standing on a road. Let's see if I can get my hands in the camera, and then they all flee off to the side, and it's no, they didn't use computers for that. They're not going to invent computers for another 45 50 years. This is all practical.
And they're not going to invent computers that can do that for like
Or even-
70 years or 80
Uh-huh.
years.
And so just like, I'm watching these dogfights. I'm like, this was real.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's rear projection sometimes, but this is real a lot of the times. And I'm really like,
Yes.
this is so cool. And there's a lot of moments where I was watching and I was like, oh, whoa, like that kind of reactions it was gathering for me out loud. But I very much agree with you, Abram, in that they hadn't really figured out the pacing of movies yet. I think in general, I think that this is just a symptom of silent storytelling, is that they kind of spend a lot of time detailing out every motion of a sequence. When in a more modern film, you would cut that stuff out. You wouldn't really need to see some decisions being made. You see an initial decision and then boom, you cut to the aftermath. And that's good enough. But in this one, we spend all that time beforehand trying to, figure out what's going on. And so it still lags in some elements of its old time filmmaking. But then in other elements, you see some shots that you're like, this is not going to be recreated for 80 years. Like they will not shoot a close up like this for decades afterwards. And so I really enjoyed it. I'm so happy we watched it. I thought it was a really, really interesting film.
It's just such a remarkable first Best Picture. And it set the bar really high, and then
Yes.
the bar came crashing down to basically the bottom the next year with the Broadway Melody. And I think that what surprised me the most about Wings is that while I agree, and I think we can rightfully criticize the simplicity of the character work and some of the weirder elements of their personalities and their interactions and stuff, but I was pretty sold on the characters because of their performances. I think all three of our main actors give really compelling performances with lots of facial acting because it's a silent movie and that's what you gotta do to convey those emotions because you're not hearing 60% of what they're saying. And the only other movie that has sort of recaptured that we've seen is The Artist, which also has more modern affordances with a more dynamic soundtrack and sound effects and stuff. But actually, I think with the version that I was able to watch with Tanner, I mean, I'm sure you guys watched a similar version. They did some really incredible audio work for this movie, mixing in a score that I doubt is original. There's no way that that's what they played in the 30s.
Where did you guys watch it on?
Download from
we downloaded it.
We downloaded it.
But
Yeah.
it also had really great Foley work inserted into it, playing zooming sounds and gun sounds and stuff.
Really?
It really highlighted some of these sequences. And even though there was no dialogue, I feel like I wasn't really missing a lot because I was in the mindset of a silent film, but it brought it to another level. It made me care more about sound effects because there wasn't dialogue overtaking them. And it really made it, of course, that's not necessarily fair to judge on this film with because it wasn't
And here,
with the film
let
initially.
me throw in. So this is funny because I watch silent movies. I watched mine on Tubi because it was free and looked
Yes,
good
of
enough.
course.
And it has,
Transfer Rewatch was fucking spectacular.
It was-
They remastered it so well.
yeah, it looked really good. And the title cards in this movie, the best title cards I've ever seen. Like intertitles were great, but it just had this piano soundtrack. So I don't know, after like 20-ish minutes, I actually put on my own music to listen to, which I do frequently while watching silent movies. Man, my soundtrack was great. I didn't have any
Self-curated.
It matched up. It synced. The sad moments in the albums were sad in the movie, and like the intense moments were intense in the movie. It just worked.
I play Kirby music when I'm watching Caligari.
From what I understand, you guys are watching the Paramount restoration. I don't know exactly when they released it, but they added all
Definitely
that
because
stuff.
they had the evolution of the Paramount or the de-evolution of the Paramount
Yes.
Studios logo, which is really funny. Went on for like 45 seconds.
I also, and Mr. Trivia Man, you might not have an answer to this. I believe that there's more footage in this version than there was initially.
Really?
Yeah, so I was digging through some trivia surrounding the restoration and first of all, the discovery of this film because it was considered lost until it was found in some film archive in Paris, France. But the original or a original version did have like an extra reel of footage, although that was edited
Which is another
out.
10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, which was apparently edited out before it was like actually fully released back in 1927. So it stands to reason that I think we did watch the complete directorial vision of Wings.
So how long was yours?
Wellman cut.
About two and a half, 2 hours 20.
Yeah,
2 hours
mine-
20 something.
20.
Yeah,
Mine was 2 hours 20 minutes too. Okay, so I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah,
probably
I
watched
I
the
think
same
there is
cut.
there is a well understood version of this film that is out there.
Yeah.
Although But yeah, so I want to get into talking about the specifics of the film here, because I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about in the periphery, but to zero in on the film itself,
Which is our
it sounds
mission
like-
here, our quest,
Yeah.
if you will.
our quest, if you will.
I will.
I think I think we
will.
want to talk about characters first.
Okay.
That's always kind of where we start with these films, so I think it's fair to start there as well. And yeah, I mean, I said it and Abram said it as well, that the character work is rather simplistic, but I agree with Tucker as well that I think all of our actors are doing a phenomenal job, as they often did back in these silent days, with their big facial expressions and stuff like that, and lots of physical action and things of that nature.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that, you know, we say like, the character work is rather simplistic. It is a propaganda film for World War One.
Yeah,
like,
it's
pretty transparently.
It is
so
not
I'm not expecting like complex, all quiet on the Western Front contemplations on the nature of war and
No,
violence and
there's
stuff like the
none of
futility
that
of it
in this
all.
movie.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that though, because simplistic is I'm not necessarily sure that's the word I would use for the character work.
I don't think I
To
would
me,
use
it's-
it either.
To me, it's more that there's a lot of movie and only a couple scenes that I think really get into our
Yeah,
characters.
yeah.
And there's a couple in particular that I think we should highlight because they're also quite interesting technically. But I think in the moment when what's Mary Preston is trying to woo Jack away from the other girl in the bar, I think
The
that's an
bubble
interesting character
sequence.
moment. The bubble
Bubble
sequence.
yeah, it's awesome.
But there is
Hilarious.
also, of course, the moment and the sort of aftermath of Jack realizing that he has shot down David. And to your point about the propaganda and everything, these are interesting ideas, but they're so kind of far apart from each other. And there's a very peculiar line in which David's mom forgives Jack,
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember this
saying that it's not you who killed him, it's the war. And I find this to be a very strange and recurrent idea throughout the film.
Because
The
for
i-
all intents and purposes, he did kill him.
He did.
He shot
And-
him
and-
down. But the mother doesn't
And
see
it's
it that
this
way.
yeah, it's this interesting situation, I think, where it's very propagandistic in a lot of ways, but also ultimately one of our main characters kills his own quote unquote brother, you could
Yeah.
say. And so the sort of glorification of war doesn't necessarily track with how the characters end up.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like it's not that the work here is simplistic, it's that there's really great nodes of character work, but they weren't stitched together in a way that I think kind of complete this picture of them or kind of complete the picture of what the film is trying to say about World War One.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the arcs of the characters are a little bit difficult to ascertain. There's a big emphasis at the beginning of the film placed onto mementos that the soldiers are carrying with them into war. David has a very small teddy bear, like cartoonishly small teddy bear. Like, where the fuck did he get this teddy bear? And Jack has a picture of Sylvia. And
Yes.
also presumably a picture of Mary because she handed him that, but who the hell knows where that went.
It never
and then,
shows
He
up
threw it out the
again.
window on the way to the bus.
and then, of course, Gary Cooper says that he doesn't carry
Yes.
any mementos with him for luck, and then dies off screen 2 minutes later.
Dies
in one of the
immediately.
funniest fucking sequence I've ever
He
seen.
doesn't die off screen. He dies on screen. He's in that plane.
That's true.
Well,
We
sure,
do see the
we don't
do
see the burning body though,
Yeah.
which I wish we had.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
I
he
think that
escaped.
that element
Maybe.
of the
pull
film
the Han.
Wings too.
kind of doesn't really carry around by the end. It's kind of hard to tell. The elements that a soldier carries with them, I think, is intended as a part of a theme of this movie. But it's hard. Keeping track of like what they have on them and what this means to them, and like that's something I kind of focused on. I'm not necessarily sure if it was like a core element of this film, but it was like present enough to where I was wondering if it was going to come around at the end in like a meaningful way. But it kind of doesn't, except for the mementos end up being the point of conflict between Jack and David that pushes them apart by the end. But then it's also kind of the war that pushes them apart when they're actually in the sky. It's not that they weren't.
But it's also the war
I don't know.
that brings them. It's the war brings them together, because that's. So there's
They don't
obviously
really
this
like
whole
each other
misunderstanding. No,
at the beginning
but
of
there's
the
this
movie.
whole misunderstanding surrounding who does Sylvia actually like. Jack thinks that Sylvia likes
It's a
him.
misunderstanding for one person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone else is
Jack
pretty clear on
thinks
it.
that Sylvia likes him because she like out of like awkwardness gave him the locket that was meant for David.
Yeah.
And David thinks that Sylvia did give it to Jack, and that's why he's all like flustered about it. Or no, he doesn't know that Jack has the thing. That's it.
No. But then he finds out, and then he immediately also finds out that she didn't mean to give it to Jack. So that
Yeah.
conflict is never really that big of a thing until then he wants the locket for himself. And then that's what drives them apart. But then they immediately go in the air.
Well, yeah, and my thing really is here that I think the film puts emphasis on, like, these guys, you know, they didn't like each other, but through the bonds of war, you know, the toils of war, they come together and they understand.
They're beating each other
that-
to a crazy pulp with the fastest punches
Yes.
I've ever seen a man do.
Yes, they overcome those, you know, those silly differences, and they are bonded together by the toils of war. Blood is thicker than water, and all of that good stuff.
And it is. I think it is the war that drives them apart as well. I mean, literally, the war is what. If we're taking the film's explanation for it, the war is what has them kill each other.
Separates them, yes.
But I think though that the relationship, the love rhombus, if we're continuing with that, is kind of the initial wedge.
What's wrong with trapezoid? That's funnier.
Rhombus. When do you get
Rhombus
to use that word?
is more
Tucker?
specifically though.
How many
Rhombus
times in the last
is
6
lopsided.
months have you said rhombus?
I think
say
a rhombus
trapezoid
has
even
more
less.
sides than a trapezoid.
No,
I'm
they,
it
pretty
doesn't.
sure.
they both have
They have the
four.
same.
There's four characters in this love
Where
rhombus.
does the parallelogram come into this?
They're all that's the same shape.
Parallelogram
We
is a
gotta
rhombus.
move on. We gotta move on.
No,
I
no,
think,
it's not. Wait.
I think if we, to kind of put a bow on the whole
A clearer bow.
character, if we can put a sort of bow on the whole character point, it's just sort of confused, I think, ultimately. And the division of screen time is odd in that we do spend a lot of time with the characters, but I don't think we spend a lot of time in ways that really progress these ideas we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we sort of have this basket of things that the film is maybe trying to interrogate through the lens of our main characters, and then it just at some point dumps the basket over its shoulder and starts putting new ideas in there.
Yeah.
And so where we end is interesting on a plot level. I just don't think it really connects what I'm hoping it was going to connect on a character or a thematic level. But I do think, Tucker, you're right. The performances are quite excellent. And ultimately...
Clara Bow's performance, I want to just single out here. She shows up on screen, and my God, I can hear her thoughts in my own head through the way that her eyes act. Like, it was so. She performs that opening scene between her and what's it? Jack. It's a normal name. Why can't I remember
Pretty
it?
simple white guy name. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is that all the names in this movie have really identifiable mouth shapes. Jack, Mary, Sylvia.
Oh.
Like you could just read the lips very easily for all the different character names. But in that first scene between Mary and Jack, I mean, it's like, boom, I know Mary. I see what she's about. I can see everything. And the way that Jack played off her was, made sense for the scene. But I was really, throughout the movie, focused on Mary as I think she probably takes home my favorite performer in this film. I feel like she
absolutely.
just really just shines on
I
the screen.
was like, I think I actively went, oh yeah, when she popped up back on screen when she's driving the ambulance.
Oh, yeah.
In the war, I'm like, oh yes, she's back.
And
So
then-
I didn't anticipate. I thought that we wouldn't see her again until we went back like for leave or something like that. But she's in the action with our
Clearly, you didn't
two
look
heroes.
at the poster then.
Yeah.
Where she's wearing a World War I war uniform.
I didn't look
and
too
she's-
close. I didn't look too closely at the poster.
No,
Tucker.
it
I didn't want
really-
any spoilers.
It really sucks though that Mary's character arc also ends up in a similarly disappointing space in the middle
Yeah.
when after our bubble sequence, which she plays very heavily in, and I want to
Yes.
we'll talk more about the bubbles because that's funny and well, it goes on too long is what my analysis of it is, but she gets kicked out of the motors carriage division or whatever the hell she's purchased, and then
military.
she just disappears. And
She's gone.
She got
Well,
fired.
she's forced to go back to the States, very specifically, which is why she's no longer present in the last act of the film, which is a dogfight, is the entire last act of the film.
Yes.
And I think that is, I think it's weirdly kind of good, but mostly a negative for me, the fact that she's not present, because I think that if she had been another force for us to resonate with on the ground, and maybe she's trying to save some people, and she just
Or-
feels like a more present force there. I think that would have lent her a little more of a heroic edge at the end, which I think it felt like she was sort of leading to as she was becoming more and more involved in the military and helping people, like helping the guy up, or as she accidentally hit him or whatever. That was the whole thing. But what she ends up doing is, instead of trying to explain the awkward situation that she was in, she takes her subservient role as a woman and lets Jack have his moment of heroism and not get kicked out, and then takes the L for the team and gets kicked out of the military. And that is a very like misogynistic 1920s kind of look at that. But I think that what the characters were sort of leading up to at that point, I felt like she's missing from that last act. I mean, it makes sense on a plot level, but
she is like,
it's
I
disappointing.
know. She's a rebel. She pushes back against stuff, and it seems to me like there would have been the perfect opportunity. It's a pre-code movie, for God's sakes. You can kind of be salacious.
Yeah, and they are in multiple ways to this movie.
Oh man, the stocking shots. Many times you get to see a woman put on her stockings all the way, and hubba hubba.
Well, there's male and female nudity in this film.
Yeah.
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 Saw a
Which
couple
is- which
asses
I
in
was-
that door. Remember the door? There's a bunch of
Yeah,
asses.
I do remember that. I thought
Which
to
I was
myself,
ve- I was-
ass shot.
I was very surprised by it, but just
Well,
see
yeah,
that.
you were
but,
so
know,
surprised
that's
that
the
when I
ex-
said there's a bunch of butts, and you were like, no, there's not. I'm like, and then they opened up the door and like, there's a bunch of butts there.
yeah, I mean that's the appeal of these sort of these pre-code films. In this one, I feel like I feel like bad comparing this to All Quiet on the Western Front so much, the 1931.
Hard not to, man. 3 years apart, same subject matter.
Exactly, yeah. But I feel like that one uses a lot of its like pre-code sort of sensibilities and freedoms to highlight the violence, whereas this one, it doesn't do that as much. I mean, we see some people get hit by bullets or whatever, which basically just means they have like a blood packet in their hand that they kind of like squeeze against their forehead and pretend to get shot. Like we see like a trickle of blood come down, but there's nothing like the thing that has stayed in my head, obviously, about All Quiet on the Western Front, the hands grabbing onto the barbed wire. There's nothing like that in this film.
Me on the monkey bars in kindergarten.
Me holding the
exactly.
boob hole every day on set.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do want to say of Clara Bow, because I think she is the performance that we all gravitated towards in this film, that she is obviously fantastic. And I do have trivia about her in this film as well, because she was the casting that the studio was really excited about. She was the biggest star at this point.
She's one of the biggest movie stars of the 20s. She was Hollywood's it girl. She was the it girl.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, Clara Bow is one of the biggest names in early Hollywood.
So they put her in this, but in reference to her military time and her time in the uniform in this film, she was apparently not a fan of the uniform that she had to wear in this, because it didn't show off her curves enough. Now, I don't know if that's a Clara Bow thing, or if that's like a bigwig 1920s studio executive is like, this dame's, we don't see her curves. We got to get this costume department figured out here.
We gotta get that waistline drawn in.
I don't know if that was, switched up in the years and years of miscommunication to be like Clara Bow said that actually, but that is what the trivia is. But yeah.
To
Abram, you've been
put a
trying
bow-
to speak,
okay.
Abram.
to use the same phrase again. I think when it comes to the third act, Tucker, you make a really interesting point about her absence and the fact that it is largely a dogfight. I think that's part of why by the end I was very, very drowsy, and every time I'd sort of blink out from it and blink back in, it would be largely in the same place, so I felt like I didn't really need to rewind ever. I to your point, Timo, and it is just a symptom of the time, but the sort of rote detail that we go into and the amount of elapsed time in a lot of these sequences, I think is sort of what throws up this barrier for me between my viewing and me really resonating with one of these sequences, because again, that dogfight is so sad at the end as we have more information than our characters and we know what's actually going on.
That's a great sequence.
It's a great sequence, but could we not get through it a little bit faster? And I think that's just sort of my overarching criticism of Wings on the whole.
Yeah, and actually that's something that we sort of comment on in a lot of the longer movies that we reviewed on Quest. Of course, this is nowhere near the longest that we
No.
reviewed, but I think that for the time, especially, it's one of the longer movies of the 20s. People at that time were used to shorter comedy films, were the bread and butter, or shorter romance films were the bread and butter of that. So when you get an epic like Wings, or continuing forward, other epics that dominated in the 50s and 60s, and Lawrence of Arabia, and then Braveheart, and her, and
yeah.
like these come up over and over again. The spectacle is their focus, and I've had a hard time on like an internal subjective level weighing the pros and cons of, I don't prefer longer movies, and spectacle is not the main thing that I personally go to for my favorite films. But I recognize that the strengths are where they lie, and they want to use those strengths best they can. And I think for me, this film is the one that element of it was fine the most with me, because this is like one of the first epic war movies. I mean, it's significantly longer, I think, than All Quiet on the Western Front, which came out just a few years later. I think it's probably 20, 30 minutes longer. I really felt that the tension in those sequences, while I did felt they dragged, were very earned in this film through its length, portraying the repetition of going on these kind of dogfight aerial missions, of waking up and running to your plane, and us seeing sort of the similar sequence of them loading up the plane, spinning the propeller, waiting for the guys to like run off the field, flying up into the air. There's so much repetition in this that I actually felt it was a very intentional element of the film that gave it the war edge that simultaneously is propagandistic, in that it looks very visually impressive, and we've got these two sort of hometown American boys fighting in the big war, but also at the same time the toll that it takes on these guys, which is why I think I would actually push a little bit back on it being like aggressively propagandistic, because I do think there is an anti-war edge to it, of the way that one of our main characters is killed through the confusion of war, and we see Jack go home and just be like completely frazzled by everything he's been through, and there's multiple moments throughout the film in the intertitles that it's like all these boys have seen some crazy shit, and they're just trying to forget it.
Yeah.
And for me, that more resonated with war being a complicated thing that takes a negative toll mostly on everyone involved, rather than a hoorah kind of propaganda. So
here, Tanner and I are going to say the same thing, I feel like. Go ahead,
I think
Tanner.
so. But yeah, I mean that's the case with any war film that we've talked about for Quest of the Bestest. There's been no war film that's like, war is fucking awesome, dude. War is all about.
We mostly get anti-war movies when we're talking about war movies on Quest.
the propagandistic elements that are present in all of those films are the glorifying imagery, and there is lots of that here. And I think we should talk about.
I think it's gloriously glorified in this film.
It is gloriously glorifying, because I love the aerial shots here. The aerial work is fantastic.
It's so
we
cool.
are talking about 1927 Top Gun Maverick here, ladies and gentlemen.
This is how I describe this movie to people.
Yes.
I'm like,
they have the
Top
sequence.
Gun.
They have the sequence where he's crouching by the side of the enemy runway, peering out, ready to run across, steal a plane, and I'm like, I've seen this before. I've seen it in an undisclosed country that we can't talk about.
At least this time we're defeating the dumb, stupid Germans.
I get, sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that the imagery here is just fantastic. I mean, what I really latched onto here, and I latched onto it while watching the film, and then in doing trivia research for this, I found that it was a distinct choice from William Wellman, correct? William A. Wellman. Clouds. Clouds are the key that unlock the perfect, just the scale of the scale and the movement of our aerial movement here. As he pointed out, you need the clouds. If you don't have the clouds in these aerial shots, it's just little flies buzzing back and forth around each other. But you put it on a backdrop of the clouds, and suddenly we have a sense of scale. We have a sense of height. We have a sense of movement. We have all of these things that are grounded in this world above what any human being can really interact with. And it's the first time that these guys are doing this. It's the first war to use aerial combat. They're in these dinky little planes.
They
And,
haven't even
Probably
invented
the first time
cool
that
planes
anyone's
yet.
seeing this movie.
yeah.
Probably the first time anyone seeing this movie has seen above the clouds.
Yeah, and just the usage of these billowing giant white clouds that they use are really fantastic. I just can't like sing the praises of this enough, because that is like the thing that gives it all meaning textually, and like in your mind understanding what images you're looking at.
Yeah, and it really helps that those little flies that are buzzing around, you can tell what they're doing, the planes, and they are making daring, awesome maneuvers. Because even when a plane is like crashing, the guy who's flying it, the plane is not actually crashing, but it looks
Well-
like it is.
Well,
do you have trivia?
I have some trivia
Because I was
the-
going to be like, wow, it's so amazing that these pilots are like making the planes look like it's all failing and there's all the smoke coming out of them. Are you about to tell me that they actually were shooting at each other up there?
Well, they weren't actually shooting at each other, but I'll get to the real world dangers of filming this film in a moment. But I want to hear from Abram and Tucker about the filming of this stuff and the aerial combat.
Yeah, I mean, Tanner, you've done a really nice job talking about the shots as they look out onto the sky. I want to talk about the shots as they look back down onto the ground.
Sure, yeah.
Because to me,
Yeah.
that's the aerial photography that really cements how impressive this film is. I think the sequence that has stuck with me the most is the big German bomber coming over to bomb the town. And
yeah, they dropped the bombs.
Oh my
dropping the
god,
bombs.
I forgot about that shot. Holy
Yeah,
shit,
and-
that's
And the
cool.
fucking church steeple falls
Yeah.
off and crushes a car, and we're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe
Mary's
they did
under
that!"
there.
it's a brilliantly tense because where our characters are placed in the scene, and because we see all of the soldiers run into a building that gets fucking obliterated. So
Yes.
there's this sense in the audience's gut that maybe Mary is in trouble. So I think that the editing and blocking of that sequence is very, very smart. But I also just think that this sense of spectacle that you're talking about, Tanner, is so clear when shit's just blowing up, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know that
yeah.
it actually is blowing up, and you're looking at these incredible shots from above, from the perspective of the German bomber. Then we're back down the ground. We're back up in the sky. We're over here. We're over there. People are dying. There's this chaos everywhere.
But you know
It's-
what's happening all the time.
It's very clear. It's very beautifully framed, and there's a really elegant harmony between the editing and cinematography in that sequence, which is really emblematic to me of how and where the film works just across its entire runtime.
Yeah, the cinematography in terms of camera movement and framing, I think, is really what makes this sing. I think one of my problems with Top Gun, Tony Scott's Top Gun, is that I found the aerial fights and choreography and stuff to be a little bit confusing. The larger, or not larger cameras, I guess cameras were doing a lot bigger and clumsier back in the fucking 20s.
Yes.
But the cameras and whatever techniques they were using for Top Gun when Tony Scott made it, that didn't capture an elegance that I think that the cinematography and framing of this film have, that I've never really seen another aerial-based movie try to recapture that. I think that the way that we're getting really interesting framing of the plane's tail, framed by billowing clouds in the background, or gentle camera movements as we're following two guys doing a crazy dogfight, but the camera's not jerking around. It's sort of following them lazily and like maybe like even like tracking a little bit after them. I found that to be a really different kind of affecting cinematography that I think is also matched when we're on the ground. I think that of course it's not as epic and magnificent as the aerial photography, but I think that this film isn't,
Except for that
all
one
it's-
shot that we all know about in the bar.
Yes.
True. Yeah. No, of course. But what I'm saying is that a lot of films where they have this kind of spectacle, you expect the impressive cinematography to be done in the moments of spectacle. But I do think that this film does a really good job at keeping its cinematography and camera movement very unique and impactful and really modern and forward-thinking and dynamic.
Yeah.
When we're on the ground, of course, there's the iconic shot of pushing through a crowd of people as we were trying to find Jack in this bar, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe they dolly zoomed between all these people and
Yeah.
over the tables, and there's a lot of interesting camera movement. And one of the two framing moments that really stick out to me near the end is this moment of both great filmmaking, framing wise, and editing. When David is about to die, and we are intercut with a totally random, but I think very powerful shot of the propeller of a plane framed by thousands of white crosses and gravestones going backwards, and it's a 2-second shot that's disconnected from the rest of the film, but it is a stunning piece of imagery. The framing, the block, the placement of the plane, and these crosses like going all the way up to the sky. There's not very much horizon in the background because they're just filling up the entire frame. That is the kind of thing that I think this movie really excels at. Is not only impressive, forward thinking. Oh my god, I can't believe they did this in the fucking 20s with like actually just biplanes and cameras like mounted onto the fucking wings. I can't believe they did that, but I can't believe they did stuff on the ground too. I mean, there's really weird shots. Like Jack is riding in a float, and the camera's like down by his legs, like looking up at him. Like, no one's doing stuff like this in the 20s. Like, even some of the best cinematography is usually like large scale fake sets, or like Cleopatra or Metropolis or stuff like that. This is an intimate and dynamic form of cinematography that is like incredibly inventive. And I really, really, the guy's name I think is Harry Perry that did the cinematography of this, and Jesus Christ, what a guy.
Yeah.
Tanner, before you tell us how it's really done, I just want to note one more example that doesn't relate to aerial photography, but it's in the third act, and it's just the most massive wide shot of a World War I battle scene that I've ever seen. Like
all the trenches, like spiderwebbing across the frame.
It looks like it's got to be a square mile. It's got to be. It's bigger than we ever see in All Quiet on the Western Front. It's bigger than even though in 1917 we moved through probably more distance, we don't ever get that gigantic top-down look. And this is the only time I've ever seen that shot. It blew me away. There's tanks driving in it. There's explosions. There's like 1,000 little tiny ant people running around on this thing, and it's from so.
Those are humans, actually.
I didn't know that. It's awesome. I'm like, oh my god, man, you just couldn't do it like that. You couldn't do it like that in the 50s. They wouldn't let you. They'd be like, make it smaller. And then in the 90s, they'd be like, do it with a computer. And now, you know what? Do it with the AI. Like that's gonna how it. You can't do it like that anymore, and it saddens me.
Yeah.
But it's awesome in this movie.
Okay, so so Timo, you want to know how it was done?
How was it done, Tanner?
All right, well, I'll tell you how
How
it's
was it
done.
made, Tanner?
How was it made? Okay, so we all know that in Top Gun Maverick, we all lost our minds when we reviewed that movie. It's like, oh, the cameras were in the cockpit with them. Oh my god! And Joseph Kosinski, he was on the ground. He was looking at it because of the transmitters and whatnot. Nah, that's nothing compared to what our actors had to do in Wings. So while they were up in the air, by the way, the actor for David, whose name is Richard Arlen, had flying experience going into this film. Charles Rogers did not, who plays Jack. So there's that. But they had to learn how to fly. He had to learn. Charles Rogers had to. What did I say?
Yeah, Charles Rogers had to learn, and Richard
had to learn how to
Arlen
fly.
Probably
Everything.
had to brush up on it.
Yeah. So while they were up in the air, they had to shoot the scenes, fly the camera, and act all at the same time. They were the ones up there controlling the camera as they were flying the plane. So they had to fucking frame these shots of like the plane, the enemy planes coming up behind them and everything, while trying not to die and also acting as though they were in World War I. So
Probably pretty
Good
easy to look
God.
like you're panicked and like freaked out when your life is incredibly in danger.
yes.
Jesus.
Yes, so there's that. Oh, there was a flight instructor with Rogers during while he was getting the reins of having to do all three of these things at once. Obviously, they also mounted it on like the plane terminology, like the engine part, the part right up front and pointed backwards. That's where they mounted the cameras.
Hood.
But yeah, the hood, under the hood. So in terms of how many people were injured in the making of this film. Not as many as you would think.
Yeah, I was going to be like
Only,
in the hundreds, I would probably say, given all those giant extra scenes.
Yeah, I think there was somewhere in the ballpark of 3,500 extras used in this film. And only one got injured and one died. And I'll get into the specifics.
Only one
here.
person died while making this movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than some modern films. I'll give them that.
Yes. So Timo, to your point of how did they make it look like the planes were crashing? Well, One of the injuries was veteran stunt pilot Dick Grace. His plane was supposed to be crashing and was supposed to turn completely over, but it only turned over partly. So apparently, the plan there was that his plane would turn over completely, and he would just be like thrown clear of the crash. Like that's just like what the plan was. That's
Okay. So we're like crashing a plane into the ground.
Yes, the plan was for him to be thrown from the wreckage, okay? And that's the plan that didn't go right. that is insane to me, that William Wellman or stunt performers at the time was just like, yeah, just crash it and you'll be like thrown away probably and be fine. So yeah, obviously he was not thrown clear, and he broke his neck, but didn't die.
But
he was actually
injury.
He was actually back filming 6 weeks later. So, the person who died actually was one of the army extras. They enlisted a bunch of National Guard people to help film this thing. And one of them died doing a stunt.
God,
and
okay.
William,
Picture this.
Yeah,
You're a National Guardsman. You've been through basic. At this time, you might have even been in the war, and you die on a fucking movie set playing a soldier. Good God, how humiliating must that have been for that poor
yeah,
soul.
he's dead. I don't think he cares.
Well, yeah.
But also, William Wellman thought that his production would get shut down because that guy died, but the army was like, oh, no, it was his fault, not yours. So don't worry about it.
Good job. Well, I do think that the practicality of these stunts, actually, I think does lend it a real sense of violence that I was really surprised at here. We don't get the like sort of gory imagery that we see in All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah,
But I think the consistency and scale of the violence here is really impressive. There's multiple shots that I think really stick out to me as incredibly violent for a 20s film. A guy getting crushed underneath the thing by a tank. There's a lot of people getting shot as a plane is like coming right above their heads, and that the blocking of that with like dogfight going on in the background, people on the ground, and a plane coming right by the camera as someone has to like fall over, and like, you know, explosions are happening in the background because we're trying to make it look like bullets were raining down. I think those add a sense of realism to this that a lot of films we've seen since can recapture because they can show like bullet holes and people and have more realistic and larger scale explosions. But for a 20s film, this is easily the most impressive war violence that I've seen from any film of this era. And I think for me, because of its scope, even more impressive than All Quiet on the Western Front.
I mean, when you're making a silent film and you have to centralize action, you sort of hone in on what that action means. Especially when you get like, I think in the moment when we get an intertitle sort of framing this idea that Jack is crossing German lines specifically to get revenge for what he believes at that point in the narrative is David's death. Because David has already been shot down. And we get these shots of him just sort of coming over these German soldiers just marching across the bridge and just mowing them down and making passes at them. Yeah. And I think that the simple...
That's not very nice. Making passes at them?
I think that the simple confines and necessities of this sort of filmmaking puts those actions more in the foreground than they might be in later films. And I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, for those shots in that sequence, we see him gun the people down, and then we get this front on in the cockpit shot where he's like laughing maniacally and he's got his like sociopath vibe on, and it's like, man, he's like fucked up because of this.
We've all been there.
Like, he's like, he's like, looks really crazy. And that is the cut that really like married these elements of like the violence and the war really affecting our characters, because I hadn't really felt it elsewhere in the movie. But when Jack is like going, he like looks visibly crazed because of all the killing he does, and then it pays off when he sees David in the plane, in the German plane, and he's like, must kill German, and he kills his friend. Like that, there's the planning and payoff that makes that thing work. But I agree, Abram, it really just sells it, and it makes it harrowing.
Yeah. We want to talk about Bubbles?
Yeah.
Bubbles.
Okay. Bubble sequence is fun. gives us an important meeting of Mary and Jack again, even though that Jack doesn't know what's happening as the scene is unfolding. And so he doesn't get a lot to do there in terms of character and acting. Like, he gets to act drunk as all get out. You know, he is like being cartoonishly over the top with being like, "Oh, bubbles, just bubbles coming out of my fucking fingertips." Da 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 da. But it really is Clara Bow's time to shine, I think, in that scene. She goes through like ups and downs of, you know, she goes through "it's so over, we're so back" a number of times in that scene. And I think she is, for as much as I just joked there, she is really great in projecting all of those emotions across her face.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I like that sequence because it feels out of place, but I think it's really interesting. I mean, this film actually does have quite a sense of humor about itself in the not war sequences when they are trying to have a little bit of fun. There's a lot of comedic energy to these characters. Of course, the meet cute at the beginning, quote unquote, between Jack and Mary is kind of just a romantic scene with a little bit of slapstick, and you know they're playing it for laughs. You know, look at this kind of funny mismatched couple. And there's I think a few more moments of that throughout as this love trapezoid, not rhombus, sort of continues to unfurl, and we get moments of tension, but played for laughs, comedic tension. It isn't until the Jack and David sort of find out each other's sequence and are pushed away from each other right before the final action sequence that any of the romance stuff ends up becoming tense. But I think each of these moments of levity bring a lot of personality to the characters. I also think of this one shot of right when they're preparing for the final battle. Jack is like laying on a table with like his arms like this, and he's like just like kind of ready and energetic and like ready to get back in the war. And the bubble sequence, I think, is the perfect example of this because it shows the comedic edge of this film that I think does work, because this is an era known for light romance and light comedy, a little bit of slapstick, situational humor, and the visual creativity of incorporating really well done bubbles into these sequences just feels so creative, and I think does put this film a step above in terms of feeling unique, because even though it is out of place, I'm very happy it's in there because it gives me something to latch onto of this is how he's dealing with A, his fame, and B, the horrors of war that he's sort of pushing down, and he's gotten so drunk that he's seeing bubbles everywhere, and not only are bubbles coming out of the glass, which is funny when you see it first, like, oh, that's kind of creative, but then it's coming out of the trombone, and giant ones are coming out of the sousaphone, and then he's shaking it out of people as he's shaking them, and he gets really obsessed with the knob on the bed frame at the end. It's like, what the hell is going on? But I really loved that sequence, and maybe some of the beginning went on a little long, but in the end, I think it's absolutely worth it for all the energy and visual creativity and a little bit of character work that it does for our characters.
There's also the interesting camera move that I really like when Mary is trying to get Jack to identify her, and we're doing this thing where we're like wobbling the camera and racking focus in a way that makes her somewhat obscure, somewhat clear, and we're moving between.
My man ate a pufferfish in Minecraft.
I found that motion of the camera
Our
to be
50-year-old
quite
audience is
interesting.
not going to understand that joke, Tucker.
I don't even understand that joke.
Me neither.
Problem.
So don't worry, 50-year-old
That's
audience.
a problem, guys.
I also want to just shout out the bit character of our Dutch friend.
Yo, Schwimp! I love
Schwimp.
Schwimp.
Yeah.
Bow, 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 bow.
See, that's the kind of comedic edge that I really
Exactly.
like in this movie. That's a recurring bit, and it's funnier each time. To be honest.
That Schwimp is propaganda that works really well, because you love this guy because he defies his stereotype, and he's always like, I'm more American than you. I'm gonna fight harder than you are, even though you think I'm a nasty kraut. You know.
I also when the drill sergeant is instructing them on how to fight, and he keeps beating the shit out of this guy.
Yes.
But there's this great moment after every hit where he stumbles around a little bit, or he'll fall and get back up, and then the drill sergeant hits him with a 1-2 where he hits him first in front and he staggers for a second, and then he comes around from behind and hits him in the back of the head, and he just goes out of frame.
No, because he doesn't hit him that first time.
No, he doesn't hit him the first time.
Schwimp is able to like dodge
Right,
it, and he
dodges
looks,
it.
he
Right.
looks at everyone. He's like, "Oh yeah, I did it," and then he comes back around to the side of the head.
Right.
But no, yeah, I love Schwimp just because we do get the classic like he's not even flexing with his like stars
so
and stripes
jiggly, dude.
tattoo.
Every single-
he's like jiggling his arm.
Yeah.
Very funny, and yeah, I think that's it is this confluence of like sort of these 1920 film, these early Hollywood sensibilities as Tucker was talking about, the slapstick, the comedy, the light romance and stuff like that, that really endears me to this film, even if I do admit that like, yeah, some of the dogfighting stuff can go on for a little bit long, but I'm okay with that in the name of capturing this incredible spectacle for the time and frankly for today, because of the practicality of it all. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine, with getting that stuff and being like, oh, this is going on a little bit too long for my good, just because I have a modernity poisoned brain where I need a cut every 2 seconds or whatever.
Would wings be better with Subway Surfers in the corner?
There's only one way to find out.
You guys have the downloaded version.
Yeah,
You can make that.
Another element that I think is really interesting is that we've got a very famous actor in this movie.
Yeah, we
do.
mentioned it earlier.
Gary Cooper plays a bit part in this film
Cadet White.
as kind of their like first partner that they have to like sort of meet up with, and then he also has two character traits. He doesn't bring any like lucky trinkets into battle, which is the exact opposite of our two main characters, and it is presumed that that's why he dies immediately.
Yes.
But he also likes chocolate.
Yes.
And he likes specifically Hershey's brand chocolate.
Yes.
Very, very weird 1927 product placement. Focus on the candy wrapper. And I think all of that is... I think that actually might be like one of the weirdest things in the movie is introduce this character, kill him off, have no impact of that. Like,
No,
they don't really like
not really.
think about it because they haven't
They
known
don't
him for very
mourn
long.
him. I think it's just like an early plant of like the seriousness and the weight of the situation that because the read I got from Gary Cooper's Cadet White is that he's like a hot shot kind of guy. Like he's seen some action. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go fly some figure eights. See you losers later. I don't need no lucky trinket. I'm all right with me.
Yeah.
And then he gets out and dies immediately. He's got real. This is gonna be maybe a deep cut, but not too deep. He's got real Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock in The Other Guys energy, where they're like the two hotshot cops that you get introduced to like for the first 15 minutes of that movie, and then they do like a sweet jump off a building and just splatter on the concrete. Is that they're totally badass characters who die immediately for some sort of payoff. There it's comedic. Here it's not as clear what it's supposed to be, but I do think it's supposed to be a
very plot.
like
It's plot in this movie because two cadets crashed into each other. Oh, we've got 2 more spots open. Main characters, you're in.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, potentially, yeah, for sure.
I saw it as like, the trinket, all that stuff, but then like the actual outcome of it is that now our main characters are given the chance to fly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe what we
good
take
point.
away is don't do product placement or you'll die immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
think
the
that's
product
a good lesson
placement
as well.
How do you like the product placement earlier in the movie where it's like women needed to drive cars in Europe, preferred Ford drivers. If you know how to
Yeah.
drive
Oh,
a
that's
Ford,
right. Oh,
it
I
would be
forgot about
much
that.
better.
Tucker,
Why
did
is
you
it
prefer,
different?
Did you prefer the Hershey's product placement in Wings or the Skittles product placement in the Shazam 2?
Tucker mentioned Shazam 2 when that moment popped up.
Yeah, I was like, this is the 20s version of... I mean, luckily they don't say Hershey's.
Well,
It's
they
not
can't
like,
say
the only
anything.
way we can beat the Germans. A nice bite of Hershey's chocolate.
Yeah.
Made in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
If David F. Sandberg was directing Wings, he probably would have done that. But
Taste the rainbow. Or
all the same,
whatever.
There's like
Love
a
and
beautifully
War.
decorated like title card that says like Hershey's so good, and it's got like a sort of opaque like floating chocolate bar in the background.
One final bit of thing, because my big thing here is, as I said at the beginning, the directorial hand. We mentioned it with the aerial photography, but we also mentioned it with the push-in shot that everyone knows from the bar. Interesting thing that I found in the trivia is that Wellman is like was not a fan of camera movement after he made this film, which is interesting because he's like, so we rigged up this whole like boom system that had never really been done before to like do a tracking shot through the bar of like it hung over all the actors, and we pushed down the tables and everything like that. And then later he's like, yeah, we did that and everyone thought it was cool, so everyone started doing camera movements with booms and stuff like that. And then me and my buddy were like, we don't like camera movement anymore. It's played out, it's done. It makes me dizzy, you know, it gets you disoriented, and you're focusing on the movement instead of what's actually in the frame. So he just like innovated, then's like, actually it sucks when everyone else does it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Abram, you got something to say?
Well, all I was gonna say is if we're getting our score sheet pulled up, maybe Tanner can regale us with some wins and
Of course.
noms. As
Well,
we do.
because
I laid
I-
off a little
it's
bit because it's very brief.
Contentious.
Oh well, yes. Okay, so
Because we gotta get into the real meat of the 28 ceremony.
Oh,
And
well,
in that this is not the only Best Picture winner from this year, that they gave it to 2 movies.
we'll get to that in a moment, I think,
Okay,
because
okay.
that'll be key in just a moment. But
Well,
yes, this film won Best Production, which was because the Best Picture Oscar was not invented or implemented until the following ceremony. By the way, okay, so quick trivia thing, quick little quiz for the Quest boys here.
I may be graduated, but I'll do a quiz.
Oscar ceremonies nowadays run, 3.5 hours in that range. How long was the first Oscars ceremony?
Cool
20
60 minutes.
wasn't it?
60 minutes, says Timo. 20 minutes, says Tucker.
I was thinking of the other direction. I was gonna say like 5 hours.
5
but clearly
hours?
I'm not gonna be right.
Okay. What is it, you gonna lock in 5 hours, Abram?
Yeah, I'll lock it in just for fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It was 5 minutes long. They got up there.
I was overestimating a little bit.
Yeah. It was mercifully brief.
Well,
kinda
okay.
figured-
When was Prohibition? Was this during Prohibition? Because what else
Yes.
is there to do at the Oscar ceremony other than drink? And if you're not allowed to do
Nothing.
that,
I don't
just make
think
it
it
go
was
by
like a full
quickly.
ceremony, though. I think
No.
that it was just like reading out the list.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it
don't
know
was
if they
during
had-
Prohibition.
I went 5 hours because I figured you get everyone in the room and you're hanging out, you're eating your food, people are coming up, they're
Oh,
going,
sure.
they're speaking for half an hour if they want to,
yeah.
you're shuffling about.
But no,
no.
except to do wins only because it was not nominated for anything that it didn't win. It won Best Production that year, as well as I wrote this down 1 second. Best Engineering Effects.
Sure.
So-
I mean, it's got pretty good engineering effects.
The bubbles, the added on fire, the fire looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly.
And it's just
Yeah.
shot beautifully, so,
Absolutely. And yes, we'll get into the whole splitting of the winner in a moment. But
let's give it a
get
score first.
Does anyone have any final thoughts on Wings?
I think I didn't need to come around this movie, but I came around it a little more because I think
Yeah.
that what this film stands as for me is technical innovation first and
Yes.
foremost. It does not do anything out of the ordinary for a film in this time in terms of its story. It is a
Mhm.
very simple 2 guys learn how to be pilots, and then it doesn't go quite too well for them, but it kind of goes kind of well for them. I don't know. But
Well, for one of them.
sure, yes. But I think that carried by 3 very strong performances. We
Yes.
zeroed out on Clara Bow, but I think that Charles Rogers as Jack Powell, I actually really, really liked him. I think that
Yeah.
he visually is not at all what you expect from like a Hollywood actor. He kind of just looks like a normal guy I could like see out on the streets. And I really like to give him gave him an actual hometown boy quality that I don't think
Mhm.
I really ever see in Hollywood movies, especially this time. Because Gary Cooper would be playing this kind of character,
Yes.
3 years later. And he just
you're
does
like,
not have that kind of energy.
no,
Like, that's one of the
he's
handsomest men I've ever seen in my life. But
He's really he's down to earth. He's a real like next door boy kind of guy. He makes me almost want to enlist in the army for some reason. I don't know.
Oh, I'm
And that could be
feeling
me
like
on
that.
there, I think.
It's like, oh, 1939? I'll sign up.
But I think that the strong performances, the really great use of silent filmmaking
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of the intertitles being placed, I think in really good amounts. I didn't really feel like I was missing too much. That combined with their visual performances that do shine a lot in silent filmmaking, and how technically innovative and inventive and forward thinking this film is. I think this holds up better than most silent films that I've seen. Of course, there are certain outliers, ones that I find a little more interesting topic wise and are a little more inventive story wise. But this is, I think, easily one of the most impressive Best Picture winners, because we've seen a lot of epics, but they wane in quality occasionally for me. Like, yeah, okay, oh wow, that's really impressive. You got that crowd going on. You built that giant fucking arch in Ben-Hur, but otherwise, for the time, I'm like, okay, I can see how you're able to do this. But this is one of the first films that I've seen where, like, wow, like you did something so incredible that it feels like it came out 70 years later, or it would have been done 70 years later. And for that, I mean, I'm giving this a great score. I've not typed in my score yet. I don't know if I was supposed to. I was rambling, but
for me, it's a really great confluence of, like, because I'm frankly really fascinated by, like, pre-code Hollywood production, and this this takes some swings there as well, but it also takes massive swings in terms of, you know, technical production and engineering and effects and stuff like that.
Engineering effects.
Yeah, engineering effects. If only I won an award for that. But no, it is like a really like perfect. Oh, thank you, Abram. It's a perfect confluence of those things for me, because I am just fascinated by this, like, very early era of Hollywood filmmaking, when they were just like, what can we do? What can we do with all of this? What can we put on screen? What topics can we show? You know, how many butts can we show? How many boobs can we show? Things like that.
How many gay kisses can we show?
Yeah, I mean, first same-sex kiss on screen, in a film ever.
Those guys are looking at each other. They are caressing each other's hair. I'm like, Jesus, there's some chemistry here. Fuck Sylvia and Mary Preston.
Give me Jack.
But yeah, I'm just, like, fascinated by this, and Wings, I think, is a really great example of just, like, what early Hollywood was capable of and what it could do. And you know what? I know this is an unpopular opinion, I think, but, you know, Hays Code, pretty bad, actually. Seems to have held back the film industry a little bit. But because I do find Wings to be a fascinating film, if not with its shortcomings.
I think my final thoughts will be reflected in my score.
Likewise.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. In 3. I'm not giving Tanner a whole lot of time to punch this in. 3.
I got it then.
1. Go. Whoa, we are really close, and I was correct, because this film got an 8.1. The point breakdown is as follows. Abram gave it a 7.8, Tanner gave it an 8, I gave it an 8.1, and Tucker gave it an 8.4. Oh, that's pretty far up there for a really old movie. 8.1 is going to land us a long ways up the list. We've got a bit of a tie here to do, but we are going to... One of the films we've talked about in this episode, referenced it a couple times, is on the list. So, the docket. We must start at the bottom with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If we think it's better than that, then we move on to Mrs. Miniver. And if we think it's better than that, we move on to Ben-Hur. All three of those films also have an 8.1. So what do you guys think? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. How can you even go about... We watched that movie so long ago.
This is tough.
This one's better.
Because we watched it a long time ago, A, and because I really like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, B.
Here's what I'll do. You guys are gonna be wishy-washy fools about this whole matter.
Okay.
My score for Wings is higher.
Yeah.
But I do think that in the case of Wings, the sort of marvel of the film, the marvel
it's the
of
first
the film,
Marvel movie, really.
Yes.
As
in many ways.
as very early spectacle cinema is goosing my score maybe higher than my enjoyment would be otherwise.
That's a fair point.
And so when I think about Wings, I think about it as this amazing and perennial example of filmmaking, practical filmmaking. And while I do have significant issues with the structure of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I still think that is a more interesting narrative than what we have here in Wings. So Wings to me is this really shiny historical curio, but I think I'm gonna have to give it to Cuckoo's Nest for holding my interest a lot better than Wings did.
Timo, what do you think?
I'm gonna agree with Abram. I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the other movies, although I think Mrs. Miniver is not as good as this one, but I do think the other two are better
that's a
than
weird.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah. hard. I mean, Ben-Hur is the good comparison, but I
It
just
is a
think
good comparison.
you know, all those movies actually have soundtracks and actually can do stuff with them beyond, added in sound effects, which might or might not have been original. I'm just gonna have to put this one on the bottom of these 4 movies, below One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, it seems
Okay.
like that's where it's ending up, unless Tanner really disagrees, even though
No, yeah, like I could kind of go both ways on this thing because would agree with Abram's sentiment that like yeah, as like a historical achievement of filmmaking and just like the interest of the whole that I have of this film, I put it above One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But if I'm stacking like the elements of the film, if I'm breaking it down into its essential aspects, character, spectacle, stuff like that, cinematography, I think they are much more equally matched.
Yeah.
But so in that case, for the sake of not having a tie in our final episode, I will go Wings below One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Your score for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is also 1.5 higher than Wings.
That
a
is
lot.
true. I did really enjoy One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest well, not the first time I watched it, when I rewatched it for Quest. But yes, it sounds like that's where it's going to end up.
Okay, well then, at spot number 43, Wings, the final movie of the 95 Best Picture winners, as officially declared so by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, is now complete. We have a full list. Oh my god. It's
We
kind of funny.
did it.
Number 40, 8.0 is Unforgiven at 46 now or something like that? Or 44? So nearly half the list got an 8.0 or above.
Good. All of them are great movies.
Great
Yeah.
films. Great films across the board. We will be doing a video like recapping the entire list, I think. Is the plan.
Yeah.
Is a we watched all the best picture winners kind of deal.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that.
There's gonna be a lot of post-mortem quest
Yes,
stuff.
there will be.
So the list is complete, but there's really not a sense of conclusion here because frankly we're gonna keep
We're gonna
milking?
ring this thing
Is
out for
how
a
you would
couple more
I don't want to
videos
get
before we.
demonetized.
Yeah. We're going to ring this thing out for a
We're
couple
not
more videos
monetized
before
anyway,
we all
Abram.
wrap it up. The next of those videos will likely be a video, an in-depth discussion, a quest discussion on one of the other 2 Best Picture winners. As Timo sort of alluded to earlier, in 1927/1928, that ceremony of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, they awarded Best Artistic Product or Production to F.W. Murnau's Sunrise,
Mm-hmm.
A Tale
which
of
we
Two
will be
Cities.
watching.
Yeah.
And
Sunrise is a movie that I've been in the last couple of days as I've been telling people that I've watched Wings, all the Kino files in my life coming out of the woodwork to be like, oh, but you got to watch Sunrise. Oh, but okay, Wings. Okay, Sunrise. What about Sunrise? Like, so
Mhm.
I'm in. I really want to watch Sunrise. I really want to
so
see it. I've been told stuff that set my expectations so freaking high for this movie. It better be great.
I haven't heard a lot about this film, but in doing research for Wings, I just came across multiple people saying like, "Oh yeah, Sunrise is just like one of the best films ever made."
Yeah.
It's just up there with the films of all time.
I've heard that it's the best silent movie ever made. I've also heard that we'll probably talk about this more, but that Sunrise had its own form of sync soundtrack at an early time that they didn't have dialogue, but they could do music sync to the picture at this point. So, man,
Yeah. Now we will determine. It won't go on the master list, the true Quest for the Bestest list, obviously, because it is not recognized as a Best Picture winner for whatever arbitrary reason. People have
Academy
decided
kind
that.
of retconned this one, man.
Yeah, they've decided that Wings is the first Best Picture winner. But we'll be reviewing and discussing Sunrise nonetheless, and an extra one after that I want to keep a surprise.
A little special secret one for all you really intelligent viewers out there. You'll know which
If
one
you
it
can
is.
guess it, more power to you. But we won't tell you if you're right or not.
No, so you
Until
can write
it's
around
pretty
it.
time
easy to
comes.
guess.
Yeah, it's
honestly.
pretty easy.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see.
One thing I think we should point out is that we are finished with the core quest for the bestest. So we know what the bestest is.
Oh,
Shall we
there
say what
is
it
the
is?
bestest, and it's been the bestest for over a year now,
it
but
has. It has.
Wings didn't beat it. Cimarron didn't beat it. Braveheart didn't come close, you know? Schindler's List is the Best Picture winner of all time.
Empirically.
9.9 average score from us.
Yeah.
Go back and
Steven.
watch our Schindler's List episode.
I mean,
Nicely done.
Schindler's List review was a great review, frankly.
We
I
were,
think
we were
really,
crying in that review, or close to.
we were, I mean, I remember just being enraptured by that film because it was the first time that I had like actually watched it all the way through that wasn't broken up across a week in my social studies class.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is just masterful filmmaking from a little guy named Steven Spielberg, if you've heard of him. One of the greatest to ever do it.
So
he made Ready Player One, guys.
we will be
Director of
minting.
Tintin.
Yeah. And some other movies
will
too.
And
We
some
will
of
be
those.
we will be creating a special award and mailing it to Steven Spielberg, saying
Yes.
that his film Schindler's List got ranked #1 on the Quest for the Bestest official list as the Best Picture winner of all time, according to the most intelligent film critics on the
Steve,
internet. Us.
Just move a couple of those Oscars off the shelf, put those in storage, and we'll put our like paper mache award.
I bought
front
some
and
really
center.
fancy parchment paper for letter writing, and we'll use that.
Okay,
You can
sounds
make
good.
a little Oscar statue that looks like Timo. The little Timo
that'd be
statue
great.
that I have.
And Steven, please leave your address in the comment section so
Yeah.
I know where to send your
Yeah,
award.
yeah. Please do that. Yes, please do so.
Well, my God, we did it. We got a little bit more to do, but we could really celebrate now. We really did it. 95 movies, 95 podcast episodes. It's all on that giant list. You can check the description of this video for the list on Letterboxd. My oh my, we set out a long time ago to do this, to embark on this quest, and now it's really come to a close, almost,
Starting with the most recent and now ending
with the least
also
recent.
poetically with the least recent Best Picture winner. Started back
true.
on September 15th of 2020.
Wow.
Abram still had hair. Timo had no facial hair. Tanner had no facial hair. I look the same.
Some of us have changed. Some of us not.
You know,
Some of our backgrounds have certainly changed since
Quite a lot.
then.
yeah. That's just
We're-
the way
we're all-
it crumbles, cookie-wise.
We all will be out of school by the time this video is live, unless any of us are gonna fail at the last moment.
Well,
I
you know,
think- I
we
think
will
we're good.
see. We'll see. But yeah, I mean,
I'm good.
if
I did it.
I
I'm done. I finished school.
If I can get a little schmaltzy here, I
Go
think
ahead.
it is, you know, it is like a poetic thing and like a really like interesting, meaningful thing that, you know, we started this when 2020 would have been like our sophomore year of college.
In the middle of the pandemic.
973 days ago.
Yeah,
900. Jesus.
This massive like part of growing as a film lover, film appreciator, film watcher, and film reviewer, film critic, if I may be so bold, is wrapping up in its first iteration, at least, at the very time that we are like, you know, going out into the world for the first time, wrapping up with college. It's
Yeah.
really interesting that these two things just aligned. And
We got a cat today.
We got a cat today. You know,
That's
we're
crazy.
basically parents now. So
Yeah.
Oh my God. Slow down, though. Slow down. The rest of your life can wait, man.
oh, okay.
I
okay.
wrote my will. I registered my gravestone. It's great.
I'm killing Tucker tonight
I'm
to
doing
get
a
all
life
the stuff
speed
from his
run.
will. yeah.
Well, oh my
I
God.
had to wait till I finished Quest, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has been such an unbelievable pleasure. You know, we have scheduling troubles. It's hard sometimes for us to
Yes.
sit our asses down and record these episodes, but by God,
every
is it
time.
so much fun every time we do it. I'm so happy that it's not really ending.
Exactly. It is. You know, we're mourning
Closure
the loss
is
of
good.
Quest, but it's not really loss.
Quest is
we're
dead.
Not really
Long
closing
live
the
Quest.
It's
book.
actually
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
we're actually so much further away from the end now than we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'm gonna say two more things, okay?
Yeah.
Because we all shook our hands and patted ourselves on the back for doing this thing, but I do want to thank the audience for coming along with us. All of the people who were there from the beginning who are still watching, all the friends that we picked up along the way, all the estranged sons that we have now that we picked up along
too
the
many
way.
Great big happy Quest family.
I should do a Quest
Exactly.
family tree.
Quest Family Tree,
Which
that'd
is
be
like
okay.
all of us are parents. We all have the same like level of relationship. We're all intermingling, and then we just have
We're all
like,
in
a
the love
huge
rhombus
amount of
together.
children. I love I love Trapezoid. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Parallelogram.
I do implore you, and I do hope that you come along with us for the continuation and the next book that we will write, because that
Write a
book is
book?
not written yet. Yeah, that
didn't
book
know
is
that
not
book.
written yet. We would like to, if inspiration strikes you and you come up with a great, fantastic next quest idea, let us know in the comments. Continue letting us know, or in the Discord, link in the description and all that good stuff. But it's
think-
exciting.
I want to thank John Tour 11 for being the only comment on our first episode of Quest.
Wow.
One comment, Parasite, out of like 1,000 views.
Yeah.
I
One
also just
comment.
want to note to Tanner's point about us writing a new book. We're actually taking the transcripts of every Quest episode and publishing those in a book.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's the first Quest book.
I've saved up $10,000 for transcription services.
I've
Oh,
got
wow.
Descript. Let's slap those puppies in a Descript.
Well, yeah.
Might as well.
Next time you're at Barnes and Noble, look for it in the I don't know, the nonfiction section.
Look for it in the dumpster.
Or the dumpster behind the out back. Yeah.
Well,
We all say the things that we want
Or
to
any
end with.
dumpster.
Yeah.
Because we're just gonna ship it out everywhere. See who
any
takes it.
any final words before I wrap us out of this one?
Cheesecake?
Good as any. Well,
Ensorcelled.
Oh! Wait.
with my
Oh,
least
God.
amount of subtleism possible, I am
Subtleism,
going to
there you
end
go.
this season, this mega season, this arc of Quest for the Bestest. We did it. We did every single Best Picture winner, and now we're gonna do a couple more. So stick around. You know, all I want to say to all of you fellas here that I'm talking to, and all the audience out there: stay cool, keep warm, and peace.